What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some of the data points, what's moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid is down 4.01%. 311 was the low. Absolute craziness, mass panic first thing, and then 342 the high. So it is starting to recover from the lows, like I said, but it was absolutely crazy this morning, and a lot of that stems from this. So the FOMC minutes that came out yesterday, a lot of signs of just some underlying fear, a lot of which are linked to tariffs and how potentially that's going to really hurt consumers' buying power. And it was more of a touchy subject because market took this for okay, like we'll take that into consideration. And then Walmart had their earnings first thing, and they pretty much said the exact same thing. And so I think that was the kind of straw that broke the camel's back and started all this fear. And so you have both of those things talking about how inflation is essentially going higher, and again, that's how you just had this crazy sell-off. So lucky to those individuals that did buy the dip, because yeah, so far it seems to be working out fairly well. Aside from that, no official news from Lucid, no SEC filings. Rivian also does have their earnings after hours today, so of course that could really move Lucid potentially, depending on what is stated. But as of right now, the only thing I do want to bring up was this. So posted by Lucid Oasis on social media, and it just shows that Gravity is heading to Saudi Arabia. So we already do know that it was announced last week that Canadians can order the Gravity, and it looks like Saudi Arabia can do the exact same now too. So I think they're really pushing the Gravity. And so hopefully during Lucid's upcoming earnings next week, they'll really hit home and reconfirm that there is a huge amount of demand for the Gravity. And so yeah, I think that's a pretty good thing. But once again, we just have to wait for a confirmation from the company itself to make sure everything is a-okay, everything's on plan. I believe the latest flyovers as well didn't really show all that much in Gravities. So I think again, we need some further clarity from that. But nonetheless, I think there is still going to be a certain level of FOMO going into their upcoming earnings. Shorts are returning 1.15 million shares, and this is why I like to analyze this information, because if shorts felt that today was justified, this pullback, they would easily be able to double down, but they're not. They're continuing to return, so I see that as fairly optimistic. 19.37% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 230.77 million shares overall are being shorted. Looking at options, 707,000 in calls, 293,000 in puts. So kind of low dollar value, but 44% of all the options being done today are optimistic in nature. And of the call options that are being done, now you see a consensus for it to be above roughly around 450 next week, so encumbering their earnings. And then the bears are anticipating for it to be sub roughly 250 during that same time period. So a lot of volatility regardless. We'll just have to wait and see what does happen. But these are all the transactions occurring today on the secondary market. So a good amount. So 1.37 million, 1.62, 1.1. All these, regrettably, that happened first thing, with the exception of this one, are sells. So big money was just kind of selling into the fear, which is kind of weird to see. Normally you don't see institutions really reacting to a lot of this type of stuff. It's retail. They're the ones that overly panic. So again, something to kind of keep in mind. Dark pool is very, very popular as per usual. So dark pool is often enough linked to shorting and other large transactions. But I think, like I said, Lucid is doing fairly well given the circumstances. Normally, if there wasn't like some optimism for their upcoming earnings, it would be easily down like 6+%. But again, I think there's a certain level of optimism for Lucid, and through that, their upcoming earnings. So with it right now at 324, it is trading between its R1 and the pivot. So $3 is going to be a strong support, and then $3.40 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. And it kind of bounced off of that. So 342 was the high. So going into the next couple trading days, just watch for that 340 for it to kind of break above that. But as of right now on the actual chart itself, not really much negatives to really bring up. Right now it is below the ALMA, so that's again something to keep in mind. Stochastic RSI, it is considered rather overbought, so this is why you are seeing a lot of extra volatility today, because again, it's overbought. So if there is some weakness coming from Lucid or just the broader market, you're going to see a lot of kind of pull down in a negative way. But I think it's just still, given everything that's been happening for Lucid over the short term, so definitely bouncing off of roughly that 50-day moving average right here, it was, you're going to have a certain level of profit taking. So nothing really to worry about in my opinion. No new analyst ratings, nothing like that. Potentially, you never know, from Rivian unveiling their earnings, that might result in Lucid possibly getting a couple ratings too. Like, because that way analysts can look like the golden child. Hey, look, I called Lucid right before they had their earnings and I was right. So you never know, that might potentially happen. But yeah, it should be a fun time based on the options. A lot of volatility, and yeah, it's interesting to see shorts also returning the amount that they have been. So they went from roughly around, it looks like from here, 23% short interest to where it is now at 19. So it's definitely good to see. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. What's your viewpoint on the Gravity? Of course, you guys know me by now. I like to play devil's advocate. This upcoming earnings, I'm relatively optimistic, but if I've seen some crap, I like to call it out. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So I do see some individuals saying that they are really pushing to Gravity to Canada and now to Saudi Arabia because there isn't that much demand in the States. Do you think there is any validity to that? And if so, what do you think? Is that the reason why? It's just lack of demand, or is there some other circumstances? So let me know your viewpoint. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. Then pop over to my Discord, completely free. A lot of good people, a lot of good chat talking about stocks, options, crypto, whatever floats your boat. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.